Good evening. I'd like to call to order Smith Vocational Agricultural High School regular meeting of the Board of Trustees Tuesday, May 20th. May I ask for a call for attendance?
Mr. Kaling,
Present?
Mr. Quadro,
Present.
Dr. Spencer Robinson.
Here.
Dr. Bonner.
Here.
Mayor Shara. Here.
Thank you. May we have the pledge of allegiance?
Pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the
United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The mission of Smith Vocational and Agricultural High School is to provide students with an education that equips them to be professional adults with a high level of expertise, knowledge, and competence in their field, creative and impactful members of their chosen vocations and their communities, and effective communicators who value diversity of thought, experience, and cultural backgrounds.
Thank you. Is there any participation by the public this evening? Please.
Hi, my name is Leslie Scans Hodgson. I'm the librarian here and I'm a resident of Northampton, and I have a written prepared statement. I was here in March to ask that the board make these meetings and public comment more accessible to constituents by providing remote access. I'm here again to repeat that request. As I stated before, our school community encompasses dozens of communities across several counties. The time of the meetings, distance to travel to them in person, work schedules, physical limitations, and other obstacles make it difficult for many people to attend in person. Providing a remote option like Zoom would make it easier for community members to watch and participate. It would also ensure that the meetings are posted on YouTube more quickly. For example, the recording of the April 9th Board of Trustees meeting wasn't posted till yesterday, 40 days after the meeting, and actually it's already received almost 30 views, so there's interest. Schools in particular are well-versed and experienced in providing accommodations. It only makes sense to accommodate those who wish to see board meetings and/or provide public comment in real time. In fact, it's not a good look to fail to do so. Other boards and committees in Northampton hold hybrid Zoom and in-person meetings. For the city's technical school not to do so suggests an unwillingness to be transparent, and I know that's not what the board intends. I urge the board to provide a Zoom or Zoom equivalent technology to promote transparency, civic involvement, and overall improved communications between them and the SVAHS community. Thank you.
Thank you. Participation by the trustees, George? Nothing? Right.
Since the last meeting, myself and Mr. Kaling attended, a few weeks ago, the MASC Day on the Hill at the state capitol. We met with our representative, Lindsay Savadosa, gave her an update on our woes in regards to replacing D building or starting to strategize on how to move forward with a major building project. And we're just setting the groundwork. And then also a couple Fridays ago, the Alumni Association held a dinner, and Mr. Kaling and myself have been instrumental in trying to get them back being more active. And we think that's starting to come together, which I feel is important for the school and past students to connect and hopefully in reality give back to the school in some way. And with that, I guess I'm done.
Okay. Just to add on to that, they did a nice dinner meeting at the Elks Club here in Northampton. The Alumni Association did, had about 65 attendees. So there's some interest in that, and there were people that had graduated from the school in the 30s, and there were people that the latest crew I think was 2017. So it was a broad spectrum, but the people that put it on did a fabulous job. Ed Lesko was the chairperson of that group, and his committee just did a fabulous job decorating, great dinner, and did a professional job. Tim Cotton brought up our video that we use at the three-county fair, and we showed that at the event as well, to show all 15 departments and what we're doing. And there's a lot of people are very excited to hear of the changes here at the school, saying they haven't been in these doors in quite a while. So I just want to stress that. Thank you. Student rep?
He has a basketball practice tonight, so he's not present.
Very good. We have a motion to second to approve the minutes of the April 8th, 25 Board of Trustees meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not,
Just that Caitlin does an outstanding job with the minutes, and I appreciate it very much.
oh, I see.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
You
Yes. So I'd like to formally introduce Jay Berry from Mars, and we also have two guests. Speaking of Zoom, we have some technology issues trying to set up, but I'm going to unmute two other guests who are on Zoom. If you, the board members, you might be able to see on my laptop, two additional members, Roger Bourgeois and Steve Hemman, also from Mars. The background to this, as Mr. Quadro said, the strategic planning subcommittee has met a few times to begin to strategize how do we tackle the elephant in the room, which is debuilding, and looking at that, looking at all the possibilities on making it happen. One option might be to investigate regionalization. So that led to some conversations, reaching out to Mars. We had some initial conversations. They had a great presentation to the subcommittee a few weeks ago, and we thought it would be worthwhile for a similar presentation to the entire board to hopefully answer any questions, to then lead to, there's an agenda item later this evening to talk about next steps. So with that said, I do have a PowerPoint I'm going to physically hand out to the board members. I'm going to unmute our guests on Zoom, and I'll welcome Jay if you want to begin.
Sure, okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. So, is the usual thing to just kind of hang out right here and
Yep.
speak? Okay. So my name's Jay Barry, and I'm part of the Mars Consulting Group. I've been part of the group for about 8 years since I retired. And all of the members, it's not a big consulting group, it's a bunch of us who are educators, former superintendents, business managers, principals, et cetera. So, but we've been active with regional schools for probably about 12 or 14 years now. I mean, just very briefly, before I was in the Mars group, I was a superintendent for 17 years in Hamden County, the three-town region, and then in the Berkshire County for 9 years, and before that, a principal. I was a long time ago the vice principal of Northampton High School, but that was way back in the 80s. So we're gonna try to do three things with you tonight. One is to quickly repeat the regionalization process that we shared with Julie and Andrew and Richard previously, so that you've all heard that. And then secondly, Roger Bourgeois, who's here virtually, we've been talking with him a bit after our first meeting with you folks, because he has some experience with kind of a unique process that led to the establishment of the Essex Vocational School on the North Shore. And then finally, some ideas about next steps that you might want to think about, okay? So this handout that I'm giving you now mirrors what Andrew's just shared with us, okay? And I might be one short, from a smaller group.
I can make copies.
Maybe we'll take it.
Just want to talk about it.
One more, and one more. Who doesn't have one? Who does that? Okay. Oh, you don't need that one? Okay. So, the first part of this is that, the Mars Association, really led by Steve Hammond, who's the primary factor in all of this, came to realize that for cities and towns that were looking to regionalize, there was no real direction for them to follow. So Mars got involved, and they put together some information that's readily available on the Department of Education's website. It's a step-by-step, this is where this comes from. And it's a step-by-step process of what to follow, things to consider. It's sort of a phase 1, phase 2 sort of approach. So I'm gonna back up for a minute. So we understand that Smith Vocational has a very unique structure as a school, okay? It's not one of the 4 or 5 commonly found school structures in the Commonwealth. It's not a region, it's not a municipal, et cetera, et cetera. It's its own, it's not a charter, it's not anything like that. The solution here that you're looking for is gonna be, it's gonna also require some unique things to happen. One of them might be that you wanna consider forming a regional vocational tech school. If you do, this is a roadmap, okay? So that's where we're starting. So in step 1 here, generally there's a formal or informal conversation with whoever the interested stakeholders might be. And to talk about the type of region, whether there's interest in doing it, and a preliminary discussion of advantages and disadvantages. If out of that discussion, there's a sense that you want to move to the next step, then contacting the Department of Education is important, and notifying them that you're considering a reorganization needs conference. That you need to think about that. Talk with them. So if it goes to the next level, what usually happens, this usually involves, so Northampton's a city, which is kind of unusual also in all of this, but usually it involves towns. So the towns would form regionalization committees, town A, town B, let's say it's 2 towns. And they would do that either through a select board vote or they would do it through a town council vote. And then the moderator would help them appoint people to this committee. And usually it's a select board member, it's sometimes a finance committee member, and sometimes it's a school committee member. Okay, those 3 at a minimum, and it can be more than that. After those committees are formed, the next step is for those, each town has one now, they get together, and at their first meeting, they form a regional school district planning board, okay, and that's what it's called. And from that point forward, all of this becomes statutory, okay. And so the regional school district planning board has, I'm not sure if you're able to find this. Yeah, on the last page of your handout, this is right from the statute, okay? This is the task that the regional planning board has to follow, okay?
Jay, I'm just gonna point out that the camera is directly behind you, and
I'm plotting out.
you stay over to, you don't have to go way over that far.
They won't
Just-
take it personally, I'll stand over
No.
here.
But thank you.
But in a general sense, thank you, it's to look at educational issues, financial issues, capital improvement issues, and come to some governance issues, and come to some kind of determination after a study has been done as to whether they're going to go to the next step, which is to write a regional agreement, okay? Or whether they're gonna stop the study, finalize their report, and share it with the respective select boards. So that's a very important step in the process, okay? They finish their study, and then they have this very important conversation. We've been involved in some of these studies before. Is the interest really there or not? And you should have majority interest if you wanna move toward writing a regional agreement.
I've got a question for you right off the bat here. Thinking about this committee, which has formal responsibility, right? You said it's statutory, that's statutory. What would the representation from Smith Vocational and Agricultural High School and or the city of Northampton look like on this committee? Would Smith Voc have its own representatives, and then there would be someone from the city, Northampton City Council, Northampton School Committee, Northampton Finance Committee, or how would that work?
So that gets right at the tricky part of this. Who are the prospective partners, okay? If Northampton is gonna be a prospective partner, then they would need to be represented. And yes, they'd have somebody from city government, somebody from finance, and somebody from
The city
perhaps
council?
there, right.
Oh, the
and
school
then-
committee.
Let's say there was another town, I'm gonna make up an example, let's say, well, I'm not gonna name a name because that'll generate all
Just
kinds
say
of
town
stuff.
A.
Town A, wants to be also included, then you'd have a select board member, a FinCom member, a school committee member from that group.
So who is from Smith Vocational Agricultural High School?
You would include basically the same, if you would consider this a school committee,
Right,
and so
so
you,
there'd be 3 people from
Yes.
this district
yeah,
and 3 people from the Northampton Public School District, and then other interested
other
member
possible
districts. Yeah, okay,
districts,
got it.
other towns or
Thank you.
municipalities as well.
But even though the Northampton Public Schools wouldn't be part of the regionalized district.
Well, that's what would, in the preliminary discussions that you have, who are gonna be the partners in regionalization, okay? And it may be that that represents a solution in terms of coming up with a district structure that's gonna allow you to pursue capital improvements. It may be that it won't. It may be that it won't, okay? But some kind of district structure change, at least as far as we've discussed this, needs to happen in order for you to be eligible for MSBA funds. Something's gotta happen.
The current board has 3 elected members and then 2 ex officio members that is part of Mass General Law, just for this district, and that's the mayor and the superintendent of Northampton Public Schools.
Okay.
So I wonder if that kind of structure could be adopted in this, if thinking about this regional planning committee.
It seems to me, and this may sound naive, that the city of Northampton would have to decide whether they're gonna be a partner in this or not. Yeah,
Interesting.
because it could be that you regionalize with Town A
Huh.
and Town B. Town A and Town B form your regional agreement, form your district, and Northampton is a part of that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What would be the benefits for Northampton being part of the regional district? Other than to help you all in terms of, I mean,
You wouldn't have access anymore to seats,
you know,
except through tuition.
Well, that's part of what you need to analyze. There's a lot of questions there.
That's the short answer.
And
Yeah,
it's
I
not,
think
and
that's-
regionalization is not, I don't think it's your only option, I don't mean to say that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we want to explore all options.
right. So just to continue down this
Yeah.
path. Let's say that the planning board comes to the conclusion that they've collected all this information, and just to use the example that you presented, there isn't a real alignment of interests among the stakeholders. You write the report, you submit it to the city government, and then you're done, okay? Let's say that there is an alignment of interests, well, then the regional agreement has to be written. The regional agreement, the planning board would do that, they would normally set up a subcommittee to do that, and it takes a little bit of time, this whole process takes a lot of time. And when you get the regional, for those who are not familiar with regional districts, a regional agreement is the equivalent for a city or town as charter, that's what it is, okay? So it is the document that defines governance and finance, primarily. It doesn't get into policy. And there are required, this again is statutory, there are required sections for it. The school, what kind of a region is it? How's the school committee formed? How are you gonna elect school committee members? What do you do with vacancies? How do you put a budget together? How do you assess the member towns for the costs that are associated with your budget. And then how do you change the agreement if you need to? How do you let a new town in if they want to come? How do you let a town withdraw if they want to? All of those things have to be addressed in the agreement. It has to be approved by voters. Voters are the decision makers. So, and I think in a city, that's the city council, I'm not sure. But in a town, with a select board and town meeting, that would be voters, okay? And it has to be approved by the commissioner. There's also a step for legal review. When all of those things are done, then what begins is a transition period. So the commissioner signed off and you've got all your approvals, voter approval, et cetera. And then there's this transition period where all the things like policy books, transportation, staffing, all of those things, collective bargaining, all of those things have to get worked out. And then there's a date on which the regional district becomes operational. So outside of your unique situation, that's how Town A and Town B would come together and do and form a region. The time frame for this really is extensive, to be honest. So we've been working with Pioneer Valley and Gil Montague Planning Board, and I think they've been at this for 4 years, maybe longer, maybe 5. And we've just completed a regional agreement for them. It's probably gonna go to the voters in the fall, maybe. So it takes a long time. The study itself takes quite a bit of time, and you started asking great questions right away. What's the benefit for the city? Why do we want to do this? What happens to tuition? All those questions come up. But that's a thumbnail on how it happens. It's a difficult process. And I think the last example of a new region in the Commonwealth was either Ada Shirley, and there's one more example that Steve knows about, and that was quite a while ago. So they're not, it's not like things happened. I couldn't name one that happened in the last 5 years.
Something different about our situation is that we essentially function as a regional school district in that we serve all of these sending communities. They're paying out of district tuition for their students to come here.
Right.
We have all of the items that you mentioned in the latter part of your remarks, all are in place already.
Yes.
Collective bargaining agreement, staffing,
Right.
rules and policy, that is, so those two things are different. We're not creating something out of whole cloth. We've got something already,
Yes.
right?
Yes, I understand that. And so the whole.
It would change the relationship of our sending districts to the school, to the district, right? Our sending communities to this district, it would change that relationship. But in terms of thinking about like two or more towns coming together where they really are starting from scratch, like what is this gonna look like and how is that all gonna work?
Right.
We would have a lot of it worked out, figured out,
Yes, you're already well organized.
yeah.
There are some things about your finances and your tuition arrangements that would be, the typical region is gonna assess costs.
Yeah.
It's not gonna charge tuition.
Right,
So
that's gonna take the closest.
that would be a change,
Yeah.
but you would still be able to charge tuition to non-members.
Right.
And that sort of thing. And Roger's gonna address something else about the whole tuition picture. So, probably talked enough, and maybe let Roger talk a little bit about the really interesting process that was followed for the Essex Aggie Tech there. Yeah.
Thank you.
If he can hear me, he can start.
Roger, can you hear us?
I can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can.
Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. Great to be here with you all, nice to meet you remotely. I apologize for not being able to be there. Little bit about myself. I worked in vocational education at a few different schools for 38 years. First 15 I was a carpentry teacher. The next 23 I was at some level of administration. The last 10 I was a superintendent. and I was the superintendent at Essex Aggie, which was a very, very unique situation, as is Smith, right? I can't think of any other two schools that had such unique factors around them. What I want to do is give you a little bit of a thumbnail sketch as to how the new Essex North Shore Agricultural Technical School, which we call Essex Tech, came about. So back in the early 2000s, the legislature dissolved Essex County government, right? So Essex Aggie was a regional voc school, agricultural school, and its region was Essex County. So when the legislature dissolved Essex County, Essex Aggie became a state school by default. The Commissioner of Agriculture in the legislation appointed 5 trustees, and the Commissioner of Education approved our budget. So we were functioning as the only state school at the time in the Commonwealth. In conjunction with that, the facilities on the campus were in terrible need of being upgraded. There were 4 or 5 needs assessments that had been done over the years, going back 20 years. 20 years ago, they were in dire need of upgrading. So there was that issue. So simultaneously to this, Essex Tech, which was a regional voc school probably located 3 miles away, was also in need of a building project, of an upgrade of their facilities. And Peabody Vocational had 5 programs in their middle school basement. And MSBA was basically saying to Peabody, we're not approving a new middle school with vocational programs from your high school that you're busing kids back and forth, right? So we had MSBA pushing for some sort of a solution to the problems that these 3 schools had. The commissioner did a study, he commissioned a study. I know you guys have had a Donahue Institute study done a bunch of years ago. So the commissioner did a study. The study came back that you should look at some sort of a combined, merged solution to this issue. And what ended up coming of that was legislation. So this was a little different path it resulted in a new regional school district, but it was the merger of Essex Aggie, a state school, North Shore Tech, a regional voc school, and a portion of Peabody Vocational, right? So sort of like a merger that resulted in a new regional school district. And it came because there were obviously unique factors, as is the case with Smith. So what ended up happening was enabling legislation was filed and it passed. What it did was created a temporary oversight board. The temporary oversight board was in charge of a steering committee to try and figure this out. What's this going to work? How's this going to work? They held planning meetings. They met with municipal leaders. They did presentations to local elected officials, FinComs, city councils. In addition to that, the legislation also funded, I think it was $100,000 in funding for a feasibility study to be done, to hire an architect. The oversight board hired an architect. They did an RFR, put it out. They hired an architect, design partnership with Cambridge. And they did the first preliminary feasibility study as to what needed to be done to bring the facility up to date or to build a new facility to accommodate all 3 merged participants. The legislation also laid out a time frame that the new member communities, member municipalities had to have a town meeting or a city council vote whether they were in or out of the new merged district. And that vote was taken. All of the municipalities voted in except for Gloucester. Gloucester City Council voted out. They then did a reconsideration vote a month later and they voted in. So we ended up with, and Peabody voted in. So we ended up with 17 communities as part of the new merged school. There was also a piece of it, the Aggies campus is where this new school was gonna be housed. So there was a whole piece of this that's controlled by DCAM, right, Division of Capital Asset Management for the state. So DCAM agreed, or was directed through the legislation to provide the land at no cost to the district as long as it was being used for educational purposes. So the keys to success, okay, if I was to talk about how this was able to be successful, it was really a coalition of champions that we put together. So we had a champion in the legislature that shepherded the legislation, which had to be amended as we went through the process. We found that it needed to be amended. It was actually amended 3 different times in order to get everything right. So Fred Berry was the majority whip in the Senate. He was our legislative champion. We had a local champion, Wayne Markey was the well-respected town manager in Danvers. We had business and industry champions, so we had our program advisory committee members, employers, and the North Shore Chamber of Commerce were strong advocates for this new regional school. And we had community champions. Essex Aggie was founded in 1913, similar to Smith. Smith was founded earlier. I think Smith was the first regional school to be founded. But all of our alumni, and I heard you speaking of an alumni engagement event with 65 alumni. Well, we had a very strong alumni contingent, not just from Essex Aggie, but also from North Shore Tech as well. And that was, it was the marketing of it. It was identifying what the challenges were, identifying what the benefits were to joining. Chamber of Commerce, the business partners were very emphatic about the positive impact that this school has or that these schools had on the local economy and the regional economy, and why we needed to find a solution going forward. So at the end of the day, we ended up building at the time, it opened in 2014. It was a $134 million school for 1,440 students. 900 were vocational students and 540 were agricultural students. Ironically, the agricultural, because the Aggie was a state school, anybody from any place in the state could attend. So ironically, those agricultural seats are still open for anybody, any place in the state to apply. And they go in as non-residents, but they don't have to go through the non-resident paperwork. The 900 vocational seats are open to the 17 community members that form the region. So you got the 17 community members, they have 900 seats. Those kids can also apply to the agricultural component. But anyone that resides any place in the state can apply to the agricultural component as well. So that's, I see some similarities to Smith. You guys, it's definitely a very unique situation, and that's why none of the models that Jay talked about really fit Smith. None of the models fit the Aggie, the Essex Aggie as well. But that's obviously it was a very involved, complicated process and project, but that's kind of the thumbnail sketch of it. So thank you for your time, and happy to answer any questions now or later, or whatever works best.
Roger, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and your specific expertise is especially appreciated because it is so relevant to our situation. I have a question about with 17 member communities, what does your school committee look like?
So each of the 17 members has one school committee representative. And they're all appointed by the town moderator, except for Peabody. Peabody was not part of the original Essex Tech, and the legislation said that the mayor could appoint the Peabody rep. So the mayor appoints the Peabody rep, and all the others are appointed by the town moderator. They also have a regional, so part of the process, that even through the legislation, eventually we had to put a regional agreement together. The regional agreement specifies that each committee member has a weighted vote depending on how many kids are in the school. So if like Peabody's got 250 kids in the school, I think the weighted vote is every 50 kids you get a weighted vote. So they would have, their vote would count for 5. Somebody else that has 50 or less would only count for 1 vote. But that was how they structured it
And
under
those,
the regional agreement.
so those numbers are in the regional agreement, and those do they still stand today, or have they been revisited?
No, that's still the way they're operating today.
Is it the biggest school committee in Massachusetts?
I don't think so.
It's one of the biggest. I know.
Money Tech is.
I can tell you that Monty Tech has
Yeah.
23 school committee members, the
Wow.
other vocational school.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Monty Tech has 23. Northeast Regional has 13, I think. I was also at Greater Lowell. We had 5 member communities. Lowell being very, very large city, so there were 5 in Lowell.
Now, Roger, again, thank you so much. I had spoken to Heidi many months ago, and she alluded to Essex having bylaws rather than a regional agreement. Can you explain that? Is that correct?
That is correct. I think it's just it's just a nuance. We hired a law firm to draw them. And I think there is a benefit to having bylaws rather than a regional agreement. I'm not sure exactly what it is.
Okay.
Heidi could probably help with that. But we hired an expert from one of the law firms that does regional agreements, and he put that together. One of the other things that at the time I thought it was a mistake. I don't know how it's going to play out or how it's playing out. At other schools that I've worked, we had quotas that each town was granted, right? So depending on population, right, census population, each of the members would get X amount of seats for their students, right? So Shawsheen's a good example of that. They have 5 members. Billerica's the biggest one. They get the most seats, but they guaranteed those seats. Now, if they don't use all their seats, then they get allocated to the other district members. Essex Tech decided not to do that. It's just kids apply and whoever gets in, and if, one community gets more one year than the other, or if somebody gets none, I didn't think that was the way to go. But that's the way that Essex Tech was prior, and that's the way they kept it. I know they've been having some issues with some of their member communities, complaining that there's too many kids going from their community, much more than what the population would represent, and they're in favor of allocating seats. But that's something that would be worked out in the regional agreement, and that's the way their agreement is set up. I know earlier today, the Board of Education passed regulations to create lotteries for admissions now.
Correct.
So I don't know whether or not that might impact a school that doesn't have a quota, creating quotas with this new process going on. Time will tell, I guess.
I thought you were gonna say that some of the communities were resenting paying more, so is is the assessment based on, for each of the member communities, is it based on the number of students who go that year? So would it change from year to year for Essex Tech?
Yeah, the capital assessment and the foundation budget assessments established by the state based on enrollment.
Yeah.
But the capital assessment in the regional agreement also is based on enrollment. So your capital assessment would fluctuate depending on how many kids are attending the school from year to year. Yeah.
I wonder if that makes it hard to budget.
Yeah, when there's no quota in effect, that you're not insulating against jumps, right? You could have a significant jump with one community, another community goes significantly down. It's less predictable, I guess. That's kind of why I was against it, but I was overruled at the time.
Okay, I follow up with Roger then. The last part of this is that, and I want to make sure my colleagues know that they should chime in, is that, I mean, it's too early in the process and we don't know enough about you to really speak about specific concrete things to pursue. But in a general sense, maybe a few thoughts. One is you might want to get a group of interested people to talk about what kind of a solution is possible given the structure that you have. Okay. A second thing would be that you have a serious capital need. Am I correct about that? Building D, is that the, so if this hasn't been done already, a report on your capital need is important. So we have a problem, somebody says, well, what's your problem? And you have a very compelling, thorough report about the fact that building D is a real need.
We do, we have that.
You have that
Yes,
report?
yeah.
Great. Is it current or reasonably current?
2019 or so.
Okay, that's
Well,
not
that
too
makes
bad,
sense.
that's not too bad. So a third possibility is to reach out to your representatives, okay? You're gonna need, you heard how frequently Roger mentioned elected officials getting involved in the Essex project. So your elected officials need to know about your capital the need for a capital project. And the more familiar they become, perhaps that leads to you discovering who he used the word champion, who your champion might be. And then I was gonna ask Roger to speak a little bit more about something he mentioned in our preliminary discussion with how tuition can have a surcharge to pay for capital costs. Can you speak to that, Roger, for a minute?
Yeah, it's interesting, the Donahue Institute report that was done, I think it's about 10 years ago for you. That was before, actually Minuteman was the sponsor of a regulation change at the Department of Ed. And they added a regulation that if you have a significant non-resident population, which Minuteman did, that you can charge, in addition to the non-resident tuition, you can charge a non-resident capital fee. And Minuteman right now, their non-resident capital fee for this year is $8,676 per non-resident student. So there is a mechanism to, and the idea is that the non-residents are sharing in the capital expense, not just the district members. And like I said, there's only 2 schools that have it. Essex Tech is one for their non-resident ag students, and it's only like $1,200. The way they determine it is they look at what your capital expenses are for the year, the bond that's due. They divide it by the number of students in the school, and that tells them how much per student. So each student, whether you're a member or a non-resident, is paying the same amount towards the capital fee. So it is something that wasn't addressed in the Donahue paper because it hadn't come about yet. Prior to that, the theory was, why should non-residents pay a fee towards something they don't own, right? Because they're not members. But this decided that it was a fair way of doing it is that they should be paying their share. If it's a significant, if it's not a lot of non-residents, then it doesn't apply. It's, like I said, there's only 2 schools in the Commonwealth right now that are charging a capital fee. It's approved, it's gotta be approved by the department. It's at the bottom. If you go on the DESE website and you look up the non-resident tuition rates, it's down the bottom of the page, the 2 schools with the capital fees.
It's something that we have given consideration to on in our subcommittee discussions, but feel like that would be a lot for our sending communities who are paying over $20,000 per student for out-of-district tuition. Plus they have to pay transportation costs in Western Massachusetts, which is pretty rural. Those costs get high fast. And then to put a capital assessment on top of that would be crippling to our sending communities.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to point out that it's something that wasn't addressed in that Donahue paper that
Yeah.
is at least something that's in play.
So Roger,
Interesting, we're gonna talk about things that are benefits to regionalization. One of the benefits is the reimbursement on the transportation that you just mentioned, right?
Right, absolutely.
and another potential benefit, the question I've had around this non-resident capital assessment, and as Julie said, the concern that we have, we would just be driving a lot of these small communities away from us. They'd probably try to look for another option for vocational ed. But is this potential capital assessment, could that turn into a benefit of why they want to regionalize? So I haven't really analyzed regional budgets, but if I'm a member of a regional voc school, is that assessment less than if I chose to stay out of the regional agreement and I'll just pay the capital assessment? Like what would be cheaper for a community? To regionalize and be on the hook, or not to regionalize, but then potentially be assessed as capital assessment?
Yeah, so you
Yeah,
have
I
to,
think the way to look at it would be, if you're part of the region, one way to look at it is you can pay this way or you can pay that way. Either way, you're gonna pay the capital assessment, right?
Right.
So by being part of the region, you have a voice at the table in the discussions and in policy making and in budget setting and in, capital expenditures. So do you wanna be part of the discussion or not,
Plus I have your transportation reimbursed at a certain rate.
The transportation reimbursement is it's one of the big incentives that's out there to regionalize.
Right.
So you're gonna be saving money there depending on what the legislature appropriates in a given year.
yeah, and that would be significant here. It would be really significant.
Okay, you've gotta have some pretty significant transportation costs because of everybody being so spread out, right?
Well, the towns.
Right now,
The
that's part of the
yeah.
non-resident.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see whether or not the transportation reimbursement would cover the capital fee. Or at least a good portion of it, what percentage would cover.
So, I guess one final thought that I have is that just something that's been on my mind. So you have a report that documents the needs on Building D and how badly this needs to be done, that it impacts the education of the kids who go here, et cetera. That some kind of needs conference with the department would be something you should consider. And that conference or that meeting should have, the folks that you want there, but it should have your elected officials there, and it should probably have the commissioner there. Okay, because you've got a legitimate problem, and it's one that we think they should know about in very clear terms. Your senator, your representative, the commissioner, and the stakeholders of Smith to sit down and say, okay, this is a real thing, and this needs to get solved. You can't keep putting this thing off. Something has to happen with this. And so we need you to think about it, and you need to give us some resources to help us think about it, okay? And so that's where the issue leaves me at this point, if I can put it that way. Steve, did we leave you out? Do you want to add anything before we conclude?
Yes, Mike, you mentioned earlier about regional agreement and bylaws. Regionalization, the laws were passed in 1948-49. And the regional agreement is the agreement between the member towns to form a region and how to operate, school board members. As far as bylaws or policy, how does the school committee run the district? So you do have to have a regional agreement, which is the agreement between the towns to form that. And then you have, if you want to call them bylaws, you call them policy. That's how you operate in that. So I don't want anybody to think that you just create bylaws. You have to create the regional agreement, to have a legal standing, and especially you have to think in there on transportation, as you're gonna transport those kids. And any child that would be transported more than a mile and a half one way would qualify and for regional reimbursement on a calculation basis. Right now, we're running transportation, they add up all the transportation of those districts, all regional to over a mile and a half, come up with a number, they compare that to the number appropriated for that year, and usually the amount that people put in is higher than the appropriation, and is a percentage. And we've been running anywhere from 80-85% recently. Years ago, we were much lower, so Mars has put a lot of pressure on the legislature to fund that correctly for the regional school districts.
It's been very much appreciated by our colleagues out here in Western Mass.
The other thing I would mention is that we talked about this kind of unusual situation, and I think Jay mentioned about having a conference with the Department of Education so that you could talk to them about forming planning boards and then a planning committee, form planning committees and then a planning board. So again, I think this is a process you need to talk about because you have an entity, and the comment is that you're running it, but you're affiliated with Northampton. So how does that work and who would be involved? And then any towns that are interested, they would vote to form a planning committee and then part of the planning board. So I think you'd have a conversation with them so you can clear it to them. This is the process for planning committee and planning board that gives you the right to proceed what you're doing. Again, this is the unusual situation and how we're best to do it. I think they can give you some good advice.
Okay.
Can I? Okay. Hi, this is Joe Bianca, I'm the principal. One of the questions for you all is just that sort of, you started to allude to it at the end there. For me, the question comes to, is there sufficient legal standing or laws that exist around regionalization that address the issue that Smith Vocational is an independent school district formed through a will, right? So probate and affiliated with Northampton, which is what you started to discuss at the end, and how that looks towards regionalization. Being somewhat of a autonomous entity that has a fiduciary named in the city of Northampton through that affiliation agreement in the 50s. That for me is where I find it gets complicated for me. So I know we're not like whatever else has been out there.
Yeah.
But is there sufficient law that already exists, or do you think there's an additional hurdle where legislatures has to pass something to address this?
Right, so there would have to be a first step, okay? So the second part of your question, if you were to form a region, the legal foundation of that is really solid, but it's how do you get there? And with the affiliation you have with the city, that's one of the first things that's got to get put on the table. Is the city a partner in a region? Does a regional district not present a solution? Does Smith need to be Northampton's vocational school? Is there some kind of a hybrid organization that you can come up with? I think in a previous conversation, we talked about how there would have to be something happening in probate court to separate the school from the Oliver Smith Trust should you go to a more independent status. And then, of course, the city owns the land. So those sorts of agreements would have to come into being. Very much need some first steps before a region could take place. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, so
I have I guess one last question.
Yeah.
So, I know the board's gonna discuss in further detail later in the agenda,
okay.
about potentially looking at Mars for some consultation work. How much should the board be expecting to be paying? Something to think about, because they're gonna have that answer.
Jay, could I come in on that, please?
I'm tempted to say no. No, go ahead, Steve.
I am the business part of the operation. You'd have to put out a request for proposal to hire us. We charge $95 an hour per consultant in the process that we do work with. So again, you'd have to come up with what do you want an organization like Mars to do? You have to put it out as a request for proposal. outlining steps that you wanna have happen, what deliverables there are, and then we could respond. Once you put that together, we could give you some estimates, but we still haven't. So let's go through, chapter 30B process that you have to do with that.
Yeah,
Again, it depends how much you want us and where do you want us to be on that. So we have to be very careful that we follow chapter 30B laws.
Yeah, no, Steve is right on target with that. And then the other thing, if we want to be sure that there's a set of deliverables or that the arrangement is specific so that we also know that we're capable of helping you. We don't want to do this if we can't actually help you. Because some of this, again, when you get into the political realm and so forth, that's probably not where our bread and butter is. So the more specific it is, the better, and then we can, Steve mentioned the hourly rate, and we can go from there. Does that give you enough to go by?
I think so. Well, no, it doesn't give me an endpoint of what we could potentially be spending.
For
So-
our assistance?
So it's $95 an hour. First we put an RFP together, present it to you of what we're looking for.
When we meet this week, we will decide what we want to be accomplished, and then we put it out for anybody to bid on. And I was wondering if you're the only game in town, or are there others also?
No, you might.
Where I was going.
But we decide what that,
Right, but okay.
how much the total amount is that we wanna spend, I think.
Well,
That has to be voted on once we get.
Okay. I agree, but I'm trying to get an idea
Yeah.
of potentially, now they've been doing this for other entities.
Yeah.
What if they spent?
How many hours would it take to,
The one thing I could comment, we need to be careful, you're in a public meeting, you're giving out information with that. The other thing I would say,
Fine.
if you start putting a number on how much you wanna budget in your budget for it, guess what? Companies might come in, consult and beat that number, where you really need to find what you want, and then they respond.
right?
We
But
could
then-
give you, I just don't think you wanna go too far, we're in a public meeting, so we need to be careful.
Understood, Steve, but to go back to Julie's question, which I was also thinking, I just lost my.
How many hours or other games in town?
Yeah, other games in town.
Sure, so if you put an RFP together, you can post that in the paper, you can put it in the central register, you can do a number of different things, and you could get competing proposals, and that's fine. That's fine, okay? There are other groups that do this. We work with regions a lot, but there are other groups that do this. And see, the other thing is, big asterisk here is, this may not be the pursuit of a regional district, it might be something else.
Right.
You know,
TBD.
yeah, very much so. Yeah, I
We're
think
just
like
trying to think.
some sort of feasibility study with some real participation from the city is gonna be important here, yeah. So that's, hope this has been helpful.
If I could add something to that, one of the things, if you are looking ever for MSBA participation, it's clearly defined, K-12, and say city, towns, regional school districts, that they will participate in a building project. So that's the problem, you're kind of a hybrid, what are you, and so that's been your difficulty with MSBA.
And MSBA is a nonprofit organization?
No, Massachusetts School Building
I'm
Authority,
sorry,
they have charged
wait, no,
with
sorry, I meant you,
assisting
Mars.
cities and towns.
Yeah, no, I know that,
Mars is-
sorry,
Mars
I
is
meant
a
Mars,
nonprofit.
Mars is a nonprofit organization, is that
Yes,
right?
That's right.
Okay.
Yes, we are,
Yeah, thank you,
501c4.
thank you.
Okay, anything else? I'll leave you to get on with your agenda if there isn't.
Tremendously helpful.
Okay, it was great talking with you.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you all.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Steve, Roger.
Thank you, Roger and Steve, thank you.
Yep, you bet, thanks.
Do you know how to get out?
Pardon me?
Do you know how to get out?
Yes, I do, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, move forward, sir. That's supposed to be-
Yes, good evening, everybody. This is my report for the evening. Just some admissions update. So just before April break, we sent out the first round of acceptance letters, so that first 150. acceptance letters that represent an enrollment seat available for the students went out. The remaining of the students that were accepted but were placed on wait list. Of the 10 first round students for enrollment, of the first round students for enrollment, 10 did decline. So an additional 10 were moved up from the wait list and were given enrollment letters. As of today, we have 77 first round students who've registered, so that's about 48.12% of those letters that went out. I will say at this time, last year we were already at 101. So we are enrolling at a little bit slower pace than last year, and Northampton is lagging behind. We have 10 currently from Northampton. Remember, we did have record numbers apply from Northampton, but they are enrolling at a slow rate. Last year, we were approximately double that rate. First round students have until Monday, June 2nd to accept their seat, and then the additional will go out. For school council.
So, hold on, so if they don't accept by June 2nd, they're out of the game.
We'll move on to the other students on the wait list.
Right.
Yeah, they have a
And-
window. But before we do that, reminders go out and personal phone calls are made through the guidance staff to the families to find out what their intentions are. So it's not like we just ignore, you missed the deadline, that's it. So we do ample follow-up to try to get them to enroll by that date so that we do have a projection of how many students we actually have.
All right, I find this interesting due to the state of what you hear more, that see a lot of in the media and news feeds on the internet that people are not necessarily going to college. And they're looking more at this type of avenue. So I'm surprised by these numbers at this point. Any thoughts on that?
No, not yet. I think it's too early to draw any conclusions from it.
Okay, thank you.
School council met today and we approved the handbook changes and we approved the final updates for the 2022-25 school improvement plan. So those will go in front of the board at the June meeting. We are MCAS testing today and tomorrow, and testing will take place for science on June 4th and 5th. We do have 2 postings that are out there for advanced manufacturing instructor. We'll be moving to interviews and assistant principal, which we have gone through interviews. And so we're waiting to conclude both of those postings. Graduation prep continues, just to make the announcement.
Hold on, question. I've seen the emails, the assistant principal moving forward. You've got 2 potential,
Yeah, currently, we were pared it down to two finalists.
and where do you stand at the advanced manufacturing process?
So those interviews will take place next week.
So you have response, you have candidates?
Yes. Yep. For graduation prep, I can announce that valedictorian is Beck Marks and salutatorian is Owen Therian. Both of those students are from the criminal justice program. And they have been officially notified and they're preparing their speeches. Senior salutes are still going out via email. This was the highest number this year of students in the senior salutes are an opt-in. So we don't just automatically throw students up on social media. They have to opt in and tell us, what their plans are, and they provide us with a quote or information that they want to share about their time here at Smith. But this was the highest at around 75 students that opted in. I want to say also that Wanzik Nurseries agreed to donate the use of plants and flowers again for the stage and photography area for graduation. And horticulture, carpentry, and cabinet students are already supporting the graduation setup today. The freshman carpentry students set up the stage and are in the process of leveling it. Trying to get ahead of the rain that's coming Thursday into Friday and have that ready to go. And next week, senior banquet and senior awards night, Tuesday, Wednesday nights are in the final stages of preparation. So pending any additional questions?
Yeah, no question, silly. So Wanzik has agreed to donate the use of plants and flowers. So they're used and then they come back?
Correct, we
Yeah,
borrow,
okay.
we borrow for the event.
You borrow from me, all right, that's what I thought, thank you.
Yes.
The date of graduation.
Is next Thursday, the 29th.
Okay.
report.
Yes, the negotiations subcommittee held its third bargaining session with Unit D on April 29th and its fourth session the following week, which I was unable to attend. The board will be apprised of our work in executive session. The policy subcommittee met on April 30th to continue the discussion on competency determination for graduation, reviewing the draft of new policy language provided by Mr. Parks. And this will be presented for a vote later this meeting. The D Building Strategic Planning Subcommittee met on May 9th with representatives from the Massachusetts Association of Regional Schools, who you also met tonight, and on May 14th to plan for tonight's meeting, where you all learned what we did from these experts on the process for regionalization and its benefits and costs.
Thank you.
Krista, facilities?
I'm reporting for Mr. Smith, who could not be here. The first project, the sidewalk project, will begin June 16th, right after school is over. The energy management system, right now that is currently on hold. The original estimate that we received prior to requesting the funds from the city for the capital project, it's now gone over that cost. Mr. Smith did reach out to the city, Ben in the,
The director of capital.
Yeah, director of capital,
Kappa.
Kappa, excuse me.
Yep.
To see if he had any ideas to bring the cost down. He was able to reduce the cost by $100,000, but that's still way over the funds that we have. So that project's on hold right now. The D building roof repair, the architect is currently working on drawings.
Who's the architect?
Roy Brown. We're currently, the engineers are currently working on the sawdust collection. The sawdust. Let me read my writing. Currently working on the sawdust collection machines for cabinet, and right now it's still at the early stage. It's based on the number of machines that will run at one time. The generator for the new horticulture building is not completely wired yet. The wire currently is going from a building to the generator, but the transfer switch is not installed yet. Tim is already connected with Kiter, and it should be done by the end of the second week of June.
Thank you. Finance report?
So when we built our budget, the Chapter 70 funds were based on the number that was provided, which is based on $75 per student. The House has changed that in their preliminary budget, and they're basing it on $150 per student. The mayor has instructed Shirley Nardi, the city finance director, to change ours and the cities, which would increase us increase our Chapter 70 funds by $10,425. This is in the city budget, which is currently will be presented tomorrow night for the first time, and then there will be 2 additional budget presentations for the city with a final budget on June 5th. So I will report back in the June meeting on the status of that. Currently interviewing for the payroll and benefits coordinator position. We had 1 interview yesterday. Unfortunately, the second interview, the person did not show up. So we are working through some more resumes to bring some more candidates in. The unemployment under Massachusetts law, there's currently a change based on when there's certain economic conditions. So currently unemployment benefits are at 26 weeks. They will be changing to 30 weeks, and it will be retroactive to April 20th. Right now, our unemployment line is negative 2,609, but I'm happy to report we have not paid unemployment since January, so we should not be affected by the retroactive. be retroactive. Tuition, we sent out the final special ed invoices, and I'm happy to report that the special ed tuition is over what we budgeted, which will help with the shortage that we have in the regular tuition. So as of right now, we have an increase of $18,258. It's not where we like to be, because we like to be able to cover the transportation, but at least we're not negative. And that's everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I apologize, again, technology, I have to stand and usually go through the presentation this evening. So as alluded to earlier in the meeting, the Board of Ed had their meeting and ever earlier today. And they voted on all of the proposed vocational regulation updates.
They were at
One-
high school somewhere.
Where was it?
I think in Methuen.
You might be right. So the Board of Ed, over the last few months, they had public input on the vocational regulation changes, most notably the proposed weighted lottery. And as of today, the vote was 8-2 to support the weighted lottery. So, as we listen to Mr. Bianca's admissions updates, all of that was under the current policy, which was the selection criteria. Next school year, when we begin to accept new applications for the following year, that cohort will have to be looked at via the weighted lottery. So we'll have a lot of work on our hands between now and then to look at the regulations, update the admissions policies, and sort of tying a lot of loose ends together. We heard from ours talking about the potential regional agreement. In these proposed regulations, districts have to accept all of their in-district students first via the lottery, and then they can look at non-resident students. That's per the regulations. That could be problematic for us, obviously. My recommendation is that we continue to do the practice that we've had, which is that we have the initial priority admissions for X number of Northampton applicants. Then we have the general pool that we review and go from there. And I think as long as we follow that same practice, my recommendation is that we look at the lottery in the same way. That perhaps we have a priority lottery for Northampton students for X number of slots, and then we open ourselves up to a general lottery. Would be my recommendation at this point until we're told otherwise. I know the other Aggie schools, they're in a similar position because they don't really have a member catchment area. So the way it happens with the other Aggies. So we've been talking about it. I think that's our recommendation. Fast forward many years, if we ever become a regional district, that might be another advantage for communities to want to regionalize. Because if you don't regionalize, potentially your students can be left out with this lottery. So that's just another bullet point to add to the list of why you may want to regionalize. So a lot happening in the future. I know in the vocational world, not a lot of happiness with the lottery. I understand the rationale behind it. Still a lot of questions that we have to solve. But yes, as of today, unless the state comes out with a new path, we will have a lottery that we have to look at for next year. Okay. I just want to thank the leadership team. One of my goals this year was to, I've been calling it some shadows. It's non-evaluative, but my goal was knowing my career path, school counselor, assistant principal, principal superintendent, but I was never a curriculum director, I was never a vocational director, I was never a food service director, and I really want to understand their role better, so that as a superintendent, hopefully I can become a better superintendent to advocate for those various areas. So thus far, I've been able to shadow the director of academics, the director of CTE, the IT director, and the food service director. Actually serve some food that particular day. So I'm really enjoying these opportunities, really understanding what they do on a daily basis, which I think just makes us a stronger team and a better school. Unit D negotiations, as Dr. Spencer Robinson mentioned, we will have an executive session this evening. I will go through where we stand on all of that. Some positive news. And again, I put that underneath instructional leadership, not really knowing where it fits, but I do want to thank Unit D. I have found in my experience, it's a great working relationship. I think we all have students at the heart heart of our conversations. We have the school and the positive success and the future vision of the school at our hearts. So I think that's been a team effort, whether it's during the pandemic or whatnot. So I want to thank Unity. I think that's just a strong leadership that we have on all sides of the table. So thank you, Unity. On May 2nd, I was down at Blackstone for the Skills USA state competition. And again, it's great to see some of the results of the teaching and learning that happens within the shops. When you see our students at that level competing, and we did very well yet again. So I want to thank our students who competed, thank the skills advisors, and obviously the shop teachers who got the students to that point. So congratulations to them. On May 6th, I was able to attend the NHS induction ceremony. And again, it's very nice to sit there and just look at the accomplishments of those students. And again, we have to thank the teachers who got them to that point. And then lastly, last week we had some representatives from the Department of Ed here for a short presentation and a tour. This was sort of planned back in the fall when there was discussions around the future of cabinet making programs across the state. So we quickly reached out to the department and invited them out to check out cabinet making. Since that initial conversation, cabinet making has become more secure. They're not really looking at that closing cabinet making, which is great news. But it was nice to have them on campus, have that presentation, show them the shops, get them around. We actually walked through the new horticulture building, and very positive feedback from the DESE administrators. They were very impressed by our staff, our students, the campus itself, how clean the campus is. So despite our issues and our concerns that we may have, I think we're doing great things, and the Department of Ed noted that. So thank you.
First, I want to commend you on the shadowing of those members of your administrative leadership team. It's just an excellent way to gather information firsthand about their roles. A wish of mine would be for academic and vocational teachers to have the same opportunity. I know it comes with a cost of substitutes, right? But if an academic teacher could maybe shadow a student in their shop, and vocational teachers could shadow a student in their academics, maybe even for half a day, because you recognize the benefit of it. It's really it's eye-opening. Even though they all work on the same campus, you work with these people, respect them tremendously, you have a sense of what their roles are, but to be doing that yourself, it's different information. So again, commending you. The DESE campus tour, did they go to cabinet making?
They did.
Good.
Good.
Okay.
It was very well
A positive
received.
experience there,
Yes.
seeing that.
Every shop was positive.
Yeah.
Again, the teachers were very engaging. DESE did not shy away from interacting with the students and asking some very pointed questions of the students, and they did a great job with their responses, so. I
Not
was very
surprising, and you also do a nice job of prepping them for that,
So.
with your communication.
Okay. Part of the facilities report we didn't address this evening. I wanted to sort of bring the board up to speed on the next few slides. I know it's difficult to read, but Japanese knotweed. Unfortunately, I'm becoming more of an expert in Japanese knotweed, which is did not realize was in the job description. So Japanese knotweed is a serious invasive species, and we are finding Japanese knotweed throughout the campus. And when I say campus, I'm talking the school property. And I have some concerns around this. Partly, we are responsible to eradicate the Japanese knotweed, but there's a cost involved. And as I show in the next few slides, there will be money spent out of our operating budget to take care of this Japanese knotweed. And that money that we have to spend on the Japanese knotweed will be money that we're not spending on our students. And that's a concern of mine. So I want to thank Mr. Smith. Tim Smith has been fabulous throughout all of this. He's been reaching out to Matthew Burson, who's an expert in the area. His business is dealing with invasive species. So he sat Matt out multiple times because we've had multiple reports of Japanese knotweed on our property. And Matt came up with a proposal. It's basically a 3-year plan in order to eradicate Japanese knotweed. You basically have to attack it over a course of 3 years. His proposal is, and I'll show you the slides momentarily, but up at the VA lot, we have a spot. It's pretty serious. It's on a very steep incline as well. but most likely in year one, it would cost us $4,000 to begin to address that one area. The second one, technically it's still up in the VA lot, but closer to the storage barn, I'll show you. That one might be easier to attack. That's a $1,600 year one cost. And then up at the state lands, kind of behind Mosier Street, there's another issue with the Japanese knotweed. And Mr. Burston is quoting $1,750 in year one. So you add all of that up, you're looking at $6,000 to $7,000 in year one. In year two, the cost goes down probably by about 50%. In year three, it'd be 30% of that overall, the first year's cost, to hopefully wrap things up in year three.
Question. I had a conversation with somebody from UMass about this problem, and they said, "Where are your goats?" And that's what it means. He says, "Goats eat this. They like it. They eat it." He said, "Hey, before you go out and spend a lot of money, you have it in-house." He said something to investigate, so I just want to share that.
Good, thank you. So being a visual learner myself, I thought it might be worthwhile to try to show the aerial view of what's happening here. So this first one, point of reference, this is a VA hospital. This is the north side of JFK. You can see the ball field. This is our property, the VA lot. That's our storage building. Okay, to kind of give you a perspective. This is Route 9. So the report that came to us initially was up in this area, this border between the VA hospital and this woods. So technically, even though we always consider this our property, and that's where our students go up for horticulture, our property comes all the way down here and it abuts the north side of JFK. There's some walking trails up through here. And what's happening is the residents who are using this walking trail has found the Japanese knotweed, and they reported it to us. So even though we don't use any of this property, this area for the teaching of our students, we're not responsible to eradicate this Japanese knotweed. That's my concern. The question I have is, where did this Japanese knotweed come from? Obviously, it didn't come from us. According to Mr. Burston and Tim Smith, it appears the hospital added a beautiful fence along their property line, and in that construction pushed a lot of things, and most likely that's where the spread happened. This is a steep decline, okay, so for Matt to go in there and deal with that Japanese knotweed will be troublesome, which is why that particular cost is higher. But that's the first area, okay? Again, a cost on us. Our students aren't using it, but it's money that we have to spend away from the students. That's a concern.
We had talked about this because a constituent reached out to me more than once about this, and you had thought that it was the responsibility of the VA. Is that not the case anymore?
It doesn't sound like it. When we look at the property lines, the VA's property doesn't end at their fence. It actually extends into the woods. And the question is, where does it? So according to I forget the name of the mapping service, but it highlights the property lines. It's up for debate, but it looks like it's on our property, most likely.
That's disappointing.
Yes. So the second slide sort of zooms in more onto what we would consider our property that our students access. So again, you come in across Scotty's, you drive up this dirt road, there's the cell tower, you come around the loop, and then you come upon the storage shed on top of the hill. And this has become more overgrown, but this is really where our students do most of their work, okay? There's a pile of mulch right around here. In that pile of mulch, there's knotweed growing out of it. So this area, obviously, we access that space a lot easier for Matt to access and deal with, so that particular cost is lower. But that's the second area that we have to deal with. And then lastly, let's move to the state lands. So, Birch Pit Road, okay. Most of our farmland, okay. This is sort of the old state hospital, all the development, okay, to kind of give you perspective. Smith College is sort of in this area. So, this is the parking lot of the alleged dog park, okay, and then you sort of have your road that goes down back. You've got your river, okay. We've got a couple fields here that we often lease out to farmers to do some farming. You've got this area that is not used, it's kind of like wetlands, it's sort of no man's land. And then you've got this steep incline right back in here that abuts Mosier Street. And as one of these residents has reported to us that there's knotweed growing on this hillside, okay? So one day, Tim and Matt went out to check. We can only access this hill, not from our property, we have to access the hill from the homeowner's property. And verified, yes, there is knotweed there. The question is, where did that knotweed come from? The only logical response is these homeowners, when they want to deal with their grass clippings and leaves or whatnot, they dump it over the ledge and it goes down there, and that's where it's coming from. So even though it's on our property, we didn't necessarily put it there. And yeah, it's on our property, we have to deal with it. So again, more money that we have to now invest in eradicating knotweed that has no educational value whatsoever. This is part of our property that we don't touch, we can't touch, the wetlands are there, totally pointless, but money coming out of our budget. Quite irritating. So, questions? It's unfortunate. Moving on from Japanese knotweed for that. The horticulture building updates, just to give the board a brief update. Over the last few construction team meetings, we are beginning to talk about sort of wrapping up the project, which is great, talking about grass and planting and so on and so forth. One thing I learned is that in order for us to receive an occupancy permit, the entire project has to be complete. And that means, as part of the scope of the project, the grass and the plantings all have to be done. Through that conversation, the initial site plan actually called out for many, many trees, upwards of 22 to 23 trees to be planted on that site, which we all agree is kind of excessive. The other issue that we're facing is the planting season. So right now, the planting season, in essence, ends around June 15th. Kaido will not be in a position, we all agree, to really do all the final plantings and deal with the grass when they're still trying to wrap up the construction of the building. So the point is, June 15th is gonna come and go, and most likely we're not gonna have the grass planted and the trees put in. So the other alternative is that we have to wait for the planting season to reopen, and that's typically in the fall, when we come back to school. So we've been working with Berkshire Design, which is the site designers, and they've been reaching out to the city. It sounds like we may have to go back in front of the city to ask for an updated site plan. But trying to cut back on the number of trees, and it sounds like the next step may be that I have to go back and report to the city and explain it as a vocational school. Our long-term goal as a horticulture program is that our instructors and students can plant some of the trees, but we can't plant 22 trees or whatever. I'm not sure if we want 22 trees to begin with. It would be very difficult for us to plant any trees in the first couple of weeks of school. And again, we want to have the occupancy permit so we can move the students into this new building from the beginning of school. So right now, my point is to the board, there's discussions going back and forth. It sounds like there will be a presentation in the near future with the city to try to update the plan, reduce the number of trees, and have an allowance where the city understands that we will be planting trees. That will be a given, but give us time. And in the meantime, please issue the temporary occupancy permit when we're ready.
Is this a city requirement? Because it was always my understanding that its life safety issues are taken care of in the building, even though the building may not be 100% done, life safety is in order and it's ready for occupancy.
I believe that is true for a temporary occupancy permit, but to get the official occupancy permit, we have to check all the boxes.
Again, is that a city requirement or is that state building code requirement?
Which requirement I can't respond to. I do know from what I'm hearing at the meetings, it's the city is mandating this. Now, why is the city mandating it? That's a good question.
Well,
if it's a city ordinance.
if it's above and beyond the state building code, maybe there's opportunity for more discussion.
The initial conversation a couple of meetings ago was the city has regulations, bylaws, whatever they happen to be, that during a construction project, we have to replant a certain percentage of a canopy that we took down for the construction. And in essence, that's where the initial site plan came from. However, there is an alternative method, if we think about like commercial retailers, developers, I mean, if they can't physically replant all of these trees because there's a parking lot now, there's actually a fee structure that developer can pay to the city to avoid planting the trees, with the theory behind it that the city takes that money and plants trees elsewhere. So we talked about, is that something that we want to entertain? Doesn't make a lot of sense to spend money like that. So that's why we're sort of looking at a hybrid agreement that we can think of that works for everybody.
Who is the person or the body that you mean when you say?
I believe there's planning committee.
Okay.
Moving on, same topic, horticulture building, let's talk about some contingency money. A couple of days ago, we were looking at approximately a balance of $96,000. And again, as a reminder, there was that shell game that we've been working on over the last many years. We renovated the animal science building, we got the companion animal building built, the pocket pet lab, a lot of moving pieces. A lot of that is funded through the skills capital grants. But we also agreed as a board that we would have to dip into the tuition revolving account upwards of $600,000 on top of the skills capital grants to make everything work. With a balance of $96,000, that means we wouldn't have to go into tuition revolving for $600,000. We would have to go into tuition revolving for just north of $500,000. Okay, so it's not money that we have set aside. Okay, it's money that we have to find. With that said, I think as a board, because we're getting to the finish of this particular project, we have to start mapping out how we want to earmark these remaining monies. I know internally we've had a lot of conversations. One of my preferences would be that the existing horticulture building, what's remaining of it, that we demo it, we get rid of it. That was the initial vision when we looked at the new site plan, build this new building, let's demo what we had, and then we have a lot of options for, you name it, for that sort of center area of the ag on the campus. Tim got a quote, in order for us to demo that entire building, deal with the abatement issues, you're looking at about $90,000 to get rid of all of that. So hypothetically, we may have the money for that. Another option is, as already mentioned, we do nothing, and we just have less money that we have to take out of tuition revolving. Another potential concern is the stormwater coming off of the field. So late winter, when the frost was still in the ground, we had a lot of rain. There was no place for that rain to go, and it washed part of the hillside down into the new building. It washed it away. So that's another reason why we need to wrap up the site plan and get some grass planted so there's no more erosion going on. Berkshire Design came out, they looked at the damage, they're coming up with some ideas to minimize that in the future. But we may have to look at, on top of the field, there is a drain, okay, but the drain wasn't working that particular day. There may have to be some work done on top of the field by the press box to better divert that water, again, late winter time. So something to consider. And then the last bullet is other. There might be an idea that as a board you want to look at and potentially invest this money in. So, I'll leave that up to the board. I do know, I said as of a few days ago, it was about $96,000. Most likely it will be less than that. The latest conversation right now is in the shop space, so the garage areas of the new building. If you can visualize, a lot of you have been through there already. From the floor, 8 feet tall, 8 feet up, the idea is going to be some tongue and groove wood paneling, basically. Okay, and then above that, up to the trusses, will be the exposed studs. The question is, do we or do we not apply a finish to that tongue and groove paneling? Come to find out, the specs call for no protection, just bare wood up on the wall. Sounds good, fine. The problem and the concern is over time with the humidity, potential moisture in the shops, so on and so forth, if that tongue and groove paneling begins to absorb too much moisture, it will expand like wood does, and if it expands too much, it may begin to pop and cause issues. So we asked for a quote to apply basically a clear coat finish on the paneling. That quote came back, is about $10,000. So where's that money gonna come from? Well, $96,000 has now become less than $90,000. So anyways, any thoughts, questions, better ideas? I just want to make sure that I'm speaking on behalf of the board at these meetings.
What needs to be abated at the horticulture building site?
Potential asbestos in the structure.
And what is a timeline for a recommendation to you on the use of this contingency balance?
Depending on what the use would be, I would say over the summer, we'd have to know.
Okay.
So really the June, yeah, probably one more meeting.
Thank you.
Speaking of the finish line for the horticulture building, I brought it up with their construction team meeting a couple of meetings ago. I want to share with the board, but before you know it, next school year will be upon us, and we would love to have a ribbon cutting ceremony. And one date that we threw out that would work for the construction team, that would make sense if we're looking at inviting legislators here, thinking of Friday is typically best for them. And right now, we were looking at Friday, August 22nd. That happens to be the new student orientation for next school year, so it would be a busy day on campus. But that's one date that we're looking at. I was afraid of picking an earlier Friday in August, not knowing, are we gonna wrap this up? And, but we also agreed, I threw out to the team, does it make more sense to have a ribbon cutting ceremony sometime later in the fall? So we started school, the students are in there, and then once we know that everything is done, all the planting is done, then we do a ribbon cutting. But nobody was in favor of that. So I think we're better off having a ribbon cutting when the building is new, it's fresh. We haven't moved in yet. So right now, with that mindset, really the best day for the construction team, I think internally we've got Friday, August 22nd. So any input on that?
Would that be in the afternoon?
Most likely a morning, we'll have to. It'll be busy.
It seems like a good time for it.
Okay. I'm not gonna click on the link because I'm more concerned with the technology, but just the April newsletter, the focus then was on AI, just talking about, again, how quickly AI is advancing and how it can be a positive, but also some concerns that we have around AI within the educational world. I'm working on a newsletter right now that's really highlighting staff and the experience that we have amongst our staff. And I want to thank Caitlin for pulling the numbers. You'll be amazed at the years of experience when you look at the teaching staff. It's mind blowing. So that'll be coming out momentarily. Back in April 10th, Mr. Bianca, Ms. Sharder, and I were able to go down to Worcester and really enjoy another wonderful evening. This was the MAVA Most Outstanding Student Ceremony. And the representatives, actually, the winner came from CJ once again. So it seems like criminal justice has taken home all of the awards this year. Later in April, we had the Green Spoon Award ceremony at the Log Cabin. So Mr. Austin Savoy, one of our science teachers, he was recognized as our Green Spoon Award winner for this year. Again, a great night. Congratulations to Austin. He does a great job. It was nice to celebrate. On May 5th, speaking of the lottery and consulting with the other Aggies, the Aggie superintendents have been coming together talking about what is happening statewide, one around admissions and how we're going to deal with the potential lottery. The other concern is there's been a lot of the conversations over the last several years around animal science and now horticulture. I think I've shared some of this with the board. Where animal science, the Department of Ed has begun to approve animal science programs in traditional voc techs. And those animal science programs were specifically around vet science. DESE has realized that they've now sort of opened up a Pandora's box with that practice, and they're trying to cut it back, okay? While the similar conversations beginning to happen in horticulture, another Chapter 74 program with a lot of concentrations. And the debate that is happening, and we're actually in the middle of a lot of these debates, is that students in our catchment area who may live in a town that belongs to another traditional vocational school, Pathfinder, Franklin Tech, so on and so forth. Those schools may offer horticulture, but those horticulture programs are not like our horticulture program. So that student wants to come to Smith for what we offer here. So then that becomes a debate. You know, the sending communities do not want to spend the money to send a student here when they can go to the traditional voc tech. The family then appeals up to DESE, and usually DESE has to side with the sending district because that zip code, you know, that code number is the same, no matter if you're at Pathfinder or Franklin or Smith. Well, DESE has begun some conversations around, should we break it up? Should the horticulture programs at the Aggies be coded differently than the horticulture programs at the traditional voc techs? So that led to many conversations that became quite lively, you know, within the Aggie schools and then also within the traditional voc techs. And at this point, it looks like the Department of Ed is backing off on that. They weren't willing to fight that fight with the traditional voc tech. So as of tonight, okay, a horticulture program is a horticulture program no matter what, which means, again, those students who live in these communities that belong to the other voc schools will have a challenge if they want to send a student to Smith. So, but anyways, I'm very happy to say that the Aggies, you know, we are coming together. We're trying to advocate because we are outnumbered, unfortunately, when it comes to the MAVA community. It's already been said, you know, MASC Day on the Hill, another great day. We already mentioned Representative Savadosa. Both Mr. Kaelin and Mr. Quadro were able to meet with her at the Day on the Hill. She happened to be here on May 12th, speaking to Ms. Bruce Boyer's government classes. I had an hour opportunity to bring her around campus, show her the new building, showed her D building. I gave her some more context behind the conversation that we had earlier with Mars. She is definitely on board, very interested to help in any way that she can. So she's just looking for that direction, but she's definitely on board. And then lastly, the following day, a few of us had the opportunity to head up to Lashaway Mill. There's a potential idea behind Larry Lashaway providing a donation to the school in conjunction with the horticulture building. So we had the opportunity to go up to the tour, do a tour. I was fascinated. If you have not had a chance to get up there, please do. Some brilliant minds work up there, and a lot of out of the box thinking. It was very, very impressive. I think the others that went on the same tour would say the same thing. So. Lastly, the same day when I was down at Skills, Mama had a board of directors meeting, a lot of topics, horticulture, admissions, so on and so forth. So again, another great chance to collaborate and to make sure that we're on the same page. Had a few donations. The first one came from the South Deerfield Vet Clinic for animal science. The donations were several blood draw supplies, totaling about $1,250. It will allow the students to work on their blood draw skills on the animals. The second one was from Dr. Purdy. He donated 2 microscopes with cameras and a corresponding monitor, along with 3 regular microscopes also to animal science. So the idea behind this, the microscopes with the projection ability, a teacher can actually be doing sort of an activity on that particular microscope. The students in the class will be able to look at the large screen monitor and see what's happening, which is great. That donation totals about $3,050. And then lastly, this is kind of a unique donation. Rob Lamica donated $5,000 to plumbing. But it wasn't a check of $5,000 to plumbing. It was the ability for the plumbing instructors to go to Granite Group Supply and basically use Rob's account. So the plumbing instructors can go and pick out materials or equipment from that particular supply store, upwards of $5,000, and Mr. Limica would cover that cost. So very appreciative of that as well.
I have a question about the donations versus the animal science, right? I mean, I guess all of them, but I'm thinking especially animal science. Were those solicited by the animal science program or?
Great question. I don't have that answer.
And do you know for?
Yeah.
That was offered.
What's that?
No, they came forward and offered.
Great.
And for Rob Limica,
Yeah, I'm not sure the context of how that came about.
thank you. Just kind of coincidence with those 2 animal science.
Right.
donations.
And that's it. Well, looking ahead, just a few things. Some important dates. So this coming Monday, there's no school because of Memorial Day. Next week is very busy. We call it the senior week. So, just for the board, Tuesday night, senior banquet at Union Station at 6 o'clock. That is at Shop Specific. You know, I think all of you have been in the past. Welcome you again this year. But again, Union Station, not Wick Park. That is a change in location this year. We are outgrowing Wick Park, which is a great thing. That's Tuesday night. Wednesday night is the Senior Awards Program. That's here on campus in the cafeteria. That's our traditional academic awards, scholarships, so on and so forth. Will be handed out Wednesday night, again, 6 o'clock. It's in the cafeteria. And then Thursday is graduation. It's on the football field the first time. That field will see human interaction, which is a great thing. The field's looking great, by the way, if you haven't had a chance to look at it. But the ceremony will kick off again at 6 o'clock that evening. And then just want to let the board know, if you have nothing to do on June 5th, if you want to head down to Holyoke High School. So the governor has actually created this graduation council comprising of many different stakeholders, and they are looking at graduation requirements in general because of the MCAS decision. They're just trying to look at what should we do as a state in the future around graduation. So they have a listening tour going on. They're coming out to Western Mass again on June 5th at Holyoke High, starting at 5:30. So I plan on being down there. And then before you know it, June 10th will be here, and we'll all be together again for your June meeting. So with that, I turn it back over.
Thanks, Ed.
The football field after graduation, it's gonna get some TLC through the summer and no use till fall.
Still no use until the fall. Right now, we're still planning on the fall, yes.
Joe, do you have any numbers on our baseball team? I know they're winning, but I didn't know what the score is now, do you
No, I don't know what their record is currently.
know? Just thought I'd ask. Thank you.
I can find out for you though.
Okay, new business. May I have a motion and a second to approve not participating in school choice for the 25-26 school year.
So moved.
Further discussion?
Yes. Please explain.
So the state regulations that school committees must vote by June 1st every year to participate or not participate in school choice. So this is your regulatory obligation to vote on it. Why I would recommend not participating is that school choice, that in essence is students who live outside of your district, want to attend your district, they can apply for school choice. If they get accepted, great. The money that comes with that student to the new district is at a much lower rate than non-resident tuition rate. It's like $5,500, $6,000 or so. It would not come close to covering the cost of a vocational education. So with that, I would recommend not. On top of that, as you can imagine, if we begin to accept school choice, that could cause some concerns from certain communities to say, why don't we just send all of our students to Smith via school choice rather than the non-resident tuition?
So I thought my understanding, and you're gonna correct me if I'm wrong now, that the money follows the student to the school. And why is it at a lower rate?
Some of the money still remains in the original community.
So
Not
the
every-
school,
yeah.
the school choice program is typically used for students going from one academic district to another,
Yeah.
right?
I get that
But
part.
because we're a vocational high school, the cost of educating students is much higher. If we said, yeah, we'll open ourselves up to school choice students, then every district
Yeah,
would
yeah,
have,
Yeah, I
tell
get
their families, enter that lottery, don't,
yeah,
don't apply for admission.
thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
May I have a motion and a second to approve amending the graduation requirements policy IKF?
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion?
Do you want to take this, or do we want
Yeah.
Mr. Bianca to take it?
Can further.
I can start, and
explanation.
then by all means, I can turn it over to Mr. Bianco or Dr. Spencer Robinson.
This came through I'll just preface it by saying this came through the policy subcommittee meeting, policy subcommittee, we spent 2 meetings, talking about it. It's in response to the elimination of MCAS as a
Okay,
competency determination for graduation. The responsibility now falls to the districts, so we have to decide if students are eligible to graduate, if they have demonstrated competency in reading, writing, and math and science, essentially, and how will we do that? And the group of people who contributed to that discussion, they were fantastic. So Mr. Bianca, Mr. Parks, Ms. Chartier, who else am I?
Ms. Wanzig.
Ms. Wanzig, also, like all the experts contributing their thoughts to this. And Mr. Parks ultimately drafted the policy.
So the policy that you see in front of you, we just want to outline the next couple of graduating classes, the total amount of credits that they have to earn. It should be in your packets. So the class of 2026, they have to have 150 credits. Class of 2027, they must earn 156 credits. And then, as Dr. Spencer Robinson said, we then had to look at the current graduation requirements and then explain how we're going to measure the competency determination, since that's not a local obligation. So there's 11 requirements. The first one is the students must pass SHOP every year. That has not changed. The second one is that they must pass the district competency determination in English, math, and science. So that's what we added. But then how do we assess that? How do we measure that? And that's what you'll see over the next few bullets. The first one's for English. So our graduates must pass 4 years of English. That has not changed. However, to satisfy the district competency determination, the students must satisfactorily complete coursework in English 9 and English 10. So while you have to pass 4 years of English, you specifically have to pass English 9 and English 10. By passing those 2 years, you've met the competency determination for English.
And the rationale is that that's when the MCAS tested was the competency in those 2 years of English.
The next one in math, same mindset. The total number of years of math that students must take and pass is 3 years. That has not changed. However, to satisfy the district competency determination, the students must satisfactorily complete coursework in algebra or integrated 1. So students have to pass one of those 2 classes, and geometry or integrated 2, one of those two classes. So it's 2 courses you have to pass, and we give the option between algebra and integrated 1, and then also geometry and integrated 2. And again, as Dr. Spencer Robinson said, the philosophy is that was the same level of competencies that were assessed on the MCAS. We're just mirroring that. And also, just a point of reference, many of our colleagues in districts across the state, this is a similar response. So many districts are looking at the graduation requirements and sort of, equating competency determination with coursework completion, successful completion at the freshman and sophomore level. Moving on to science. Students must pass 3 years of science. That has not changed. But to satisfy the district competency determination, students must satisfactorily complete 1 year of coursework. And that's either biology or physics. Again, same mindset, same theory. The next one, really the rest hasn't really changed. There's no competency determinations. But just as a point of reference for the board, our students must pass 3 years of the history of social science. One of them has to be U.S. history as per state law. All students must pass 4 years of phys ed. They must pass 2 semesters of health, 2 semesters of art education. They also must meet attendance standards as set forth in the Student Information Handbook. And they also have to have a full academic course schedule every year. So in essence, you cannot graduate early. The last 2 bullets, not really bullets, but the last 2 clauses at the end aren't specifically graduation requirements, but we do want to outline that the principal is authorized to waive local graduation requirements when extenuating circumstances exist. What would that look like? You may have a student with an IEP who has services that we must meet in their grid, which may mean they have a certain number of pull-out classes that they must to attend, and in order for us to make the schedule work, we may have to have that student not complete one of those other graduation requirements. So that's one example.
All right, so all this passing is determined by the program, the teacher, the administration, whatever. There's no standardized test, okay? So you get rid of the stigma of the standardized test. Just off the top of my head, this seems more expensive than just passing the MCAS. I mean, so supposedly you're a good test taker, you thrive on passing the MCAS, and you don't necessarily satisfy some of these requirements.
No, you would still have to, all these were in existence.
Though, it's all
Yeah, they
still,
were previously, yes.
okay,
Just
All
the
right.
competency part.
yeah, and there's no standardized testing.
Correct.
All right, and number 5, 1 year of coursework in biology or physics, is chemistry offered at the
It's again to align, that's a competency determination to align with 9th or 10th grade science. So the courses that are in the parentheses, those are those have to be passed to meet the competency determination, to be determined competent.
So our students, during the MCAS era, our students would have met the science competency typically by taking either the biology MCAS or the physics MCAS.
Which is part of our regular curriculum.
So we said, in order to sort of model that, you must pass either the biology course or the physics course. Yes, back to your first question, is there chemistry? Yes. That's typically in the upper grades, and our students were not testing in chemistry for the MCAS. The last bullet is not part of the graduation requirements, but as a vocational school, we felt it was important to outline for the families. This is the Chapter 74 competency certificate. So in order to graduate with that certificate, students must fulfill the competencies of the chosen vocational shop and have completed a minimum of 900 hours within their shop. And that's outlined by Chapter 74 regulations. So again, as a reminder, when the students walk across the stage next Thursday and shake Mr. Bianca's hand, they're actually receiving 2 pieces of paper. It's the high school diploma and the Chapter 74 certificate. So.
Okay, the file name, IKF, is that significance?
That's the
Code.
file code, typically
Just
in
the code.
ABSC. If you're looking up in your policy manual, that's what you're looking for.
What I appreciate especially about this, that you wouldn't just reading it, the amount of discussion we had regarding these, is this is so clear and easy to understand by students and their families. Reading through it, they know exactly what's expected of them.
So I'd like to go back with a motion, second amending the graduation requirements policy IKF. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
May I have a motion, a second, to approve a $600 superintendent award.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
What's the, sorry,
Is this the, yeah, the
can you just
annual?
tell us what this is?
Yes, thank you.
This is the annual award that I
He takes off the
select on the
ball.
last day of school, right after the PTO gives us a wonderful lunch. This is an individual that has typically gone above and beyond the Call of Duty, the job description. It does not necessarily have to be a teacher, it can be anybody. And a few years ago, well, the $600 that comes from the trustees. A few years ago, they had been $500. The board had voted to up it to $600. So I'm simply asking to continue this tradition.
And so we won't say.
I don't have the winner's name right now, but you will find out on the last day of school.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
May I have a motion and a second to approve the following surplus for scrap? From automotive, 2 gym cars, from the nurse, a wheelchair, from academics, 2 black chairs and 5 blue chairs.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Discussion, possible vote, hire Mars Consulting Services.
It sounds to me like what the path forward in this should be, or the next step. We have a policy, debuilding subcommittee meeting tomorrow, and Dr. Lincoln will tell me if you have a different understanding, but I would think that our work, the three of us, so you and Mr. Quadro and I will develop an RFP that would then, so we would speak to the points that Jay and the others said would need to be in an RFP to say, this is what we would be, the work we would be interested in having done in support of this exploration. And this is how much we would be willing to spend on it, and then we would bring that, would we bring that to the board? So we bring that to the board for the June meeting.
Yeah, I recommend tabling this until the next meeting after you gather your information.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have a quick
yeah,
question.
but,
Sorry,
Go
just a
ahead.
quick question.
Yeah,
So, what was presented this evening was really focusing on regionalization.
Yes.
Are there alternatives to getting to your desired goal about debuilding? I mean, like changing statutes saying that you could apply for grants through MSBA, you know, something else, other alternatives.
It comes down to the financing beyond MSBA, right? Because that wouldn't cover the entire cost or anywhere near the entire cost. And so who will pay for that? So the capital assessment is one possibility, keep the same governance structure that we have here and assess a capital fee to all of the
Spending,
non-resident students, about 80%, right? And another possibility that we presented that, you know, we considered almost a year ago now, last summer, is to reduce the number of shops here, right? So to tear down debuilding and not replace it, keep the governance structure the same and contract the vocational offerings here.
Okay, so in the RFP, you will be listing potential alternatives or outcomes, your desired outcomes.
It sounds like we should, that's a good suggestion. So you're saying to put those in the RFP?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. So that whoever we work with would provide, those would be included in the deliverables. Got it, thank you. Do you have other ideas that we should be?
No, I just wondered, 'cause
Okay.
Maybe the
That's all.
RFP is just that you're looking for options in general.
yeah, and then not necessarily structured to be presented to this group, but that has to be posted in, say, the newspaper, Central Register.
Yeah.
And what other avenues there may be.
Yeah.
And see what type of response we get, right?
So tomorrow, the three of us will sit down and say, what do we want, what are we looking for, informed by what we learned here tonight and the work we've been doing.
And as far as this agenda, we'll table this
Yeah.
one item.
Yes.
Just so they have it here in those.
What
Thank
we'll
you.
need is, we'll need a scope of services.
Yeah.
And then we'll take the scope of services and we'll put it together into a document, into an RFP.
When you say we, does that mean you?
Well, I will be included in this.
Awesome, thank you.
I was just gonna say that, well, thank you, Crystal.
So the
Another quick
Go ahead.
question, please. The cost of the actual study or
Yeah,
is that something that you could request through capital because it's a one-time thing?
We were
Just ask.
We had some, go ahead.
considering potentially the Board of Trustees account that
Okay.
we have access to. Because is the timeline passed for?
Yeah, so it would be
For next year,
Okay.
in January,
But something to consider if there's like an in-between next step, yeah. Thank you.
All right, I'm done. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
No. We need
Discussion
to
possible vote, Board of Trustees authority to develop high school graduation program. You want to speak to that?
So this came about based on the conversation that was occurring at the board meeting last month. The mayor recommended that particular conversation be tabled until, there was no agenda item last month. So here's the agenda item this month for the board to discuss, any potential policy or direction as far as who oversees graduation program, planning, oversight, so on and so forth. And I think just to advocate for myself and my leadership team, and specifically the high school principal, I just wanna make sure that we're clear and transparent on who oversees graduation. So that's where the conversation, I think, was beginning to happen last month. And again, we tabled it, so I open up to the board for input.
Is this something where a motion could be made now, or would this go to the policy subcommittee for the development of a policy that would then come before the board?
That might be the wisest decision. I would say as far as timing, I think we're okay. Graduation's next Thursday. I think your program is set. So, this discussion is not gonna impact next Thursday. But I think for next year, it would be nice. So that might be one avenue, is just to push it to the policy subcommittee to discuss and then present a recommendation.
And it's your desire to have clarity around it.
Yes.
So we'll transfer that to committee. Okay, the next item, future business, June 10th, 2025, regular Board of Trustees meeting here in the library at 5 p.m. And at this time, I'm going to make a motion a second to enter into executive session under Massachusetts General Law, Open Meeting Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, 2-2 to conduct collective bargaining with Unity and to reconvene in open session for possible action. May I have a roll call?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Kaling,
Yes.
Mr. Quadro,
Yes, present.
No, you're saying
No,
yes,
no.
you
Roll
support
call on the-
motion
Okay.
to go into executive session.
Dr. Spencer Robinson,
Yes.
Dr. Bonner,
Yes.
Mayor Shara.
Yes.
Would like to make a motion to adjourn? For this part of the.
No, you don't.
No, because I think
No,
we're gonna come back in.
We're coming back
Yeah.
in, but, okay, so we're gonna just,